Good morning. What a crowd. Great to see you all. Yeah, testing smarter, not harder. That's the key today. Well, Patrick already mentioned it. So let's see what we can do to get smarter and not make our lives harder. I think you can use two things for that. One of them is knowledge methodology and that sort of thing. But another thing, well, when I was preparing this talk, I was thinking about this saying: don't postpone to tomorrow what you can have done by someone else today. And that's exactly why we love generative AI, because we think it can do all sorts of things for us. Well, maybe we still have to be a little bit careful once in a while. So let's look into this. So, how are you feeling? Are you happy? Okay, well, you can do better than that, but I know it's early morning, but are you happy here? Okay, good to hear. So I'm also happy. Yeah? So, as Okan already said in his opening and second time, last year we were already surprised by how many people joined us, and today it's even much bigger. So I'm very pleased with that, and of course Okan, thanks for inviting me to be the program committee chairman. And together we built this program with a lot of proposals from all you. And also I would like to have a big thank you, so a big applause for the program committee, because they did a good job. Thank you. Well, I'm not spending much time on introducing myself. I was already introduced by you. Thank you very much. But one of the things, people, that help me a little bit is I always carry around these books. And why is it that I'm very proud? Well, TMAP, which is our body of knowledge, exists for 30 years already. So having 30 years of TMAP now gives me the advantage that three of you can win a book. I brought a few. And the people that were in my tutorial yesterday, they know yesterday it took me quite some time to award these books. Today I have thought of something else to make it much quicker. Anyway, let's start. Now the thing with quality engineering and testing is that users and managers and such, they often don't know exactly what it is. Also, if you just talk about testing, they think they can do without it, because if you have perfect software, you don't need to test it. Who has ever seen perfect software, by the way? Okay. Well, so if they ask why quality engineering and testing, the main answer is so you can sleep like a baby. Because you have good night rest, because you know no bad things will happen with your IT systems. And then, of course, they wonder, yeah, but we cannot cover everything. So where do we need to put our effort? And then the simple answer is where the business wins big, so where there is business value, and where the bugs bite hardest. Where are the biggest risks? So it's basically about value and risks. And then they don't want to wait, because that's one of the problems of people today. They're always in a hurry. So they want to have speed. How do you get speed? Well, use bots and agents and all these other nice new terms. So that's what we're going into today. A little bit of how to do it and what tools you can use. And also some warnings for you. Now, of course, I use GenAI preparing this talk. So, and also one of the things with GenAI is you should always be transparent about using generative AI. And what I do is every time I have a picture that was generated by GenAI, I put the prompt there. And it's not that you think, I want the same picture, let's do the same code, because the funny thing with generative AI is if you try the same code, you get another picture. If I try the same code, I also get another picture. So sometimes that's nice, other times it's not. But anyway, I asked generate an image of a very experienced quality engineer in a working context. And what do you get? This. So if someone is very experienced, obviously they need ray and error. Well, maybe. If it's an engineer, they need a hard hat. And if it's about quality, they have a tag saying quality. So, yeah. But now, look how he's measuring. All of you has ever used this kind of device? Is he doing it well? No, he's using it the wrong way around. So GenAI is not perfect yet. And we will have a lot of nice talks, and I will also make a reference to all these talks. So one of the talks is by Christine Pinto, and one of the things in her talk is AI pitfalls from hilarious to subtle flaws and biases. So there will be more about AI getting it wrong today. Anyway, I thought let's do another prompt, and I asked to have a tester. Now apparently ChatGPT thinks testers always have clipboards. I don't know why, but who has ever used a clipboard over the last 5 years? Yeah, probably that. So, but GenAI thinks for you. Also, well, the tester apparently is a map with a beard. But then I thought, let's ask for 5 testers. Maybe I get a little bit more diversity. And yes, it does. So that's nice. So now we have 5 people with clipboards. So, well, okay. Is it nice? Anyway, we have nice pictures. And Yadi is gonna talk about AI augmented QA management. So, managing what all these people do. I do forward to that, yeah. Now, what is quality engineering? Quality engineering is a word that I first heard in 2018. And that was when we were writing our book. Our book is about quality engineering and testing. But we heard the word quality engineers, never heard it before. So we asked, what is it? And then we couldn't find a definition. So we spent quite some time talking with many people and finally came up with this definition. So quality engineering is about team members and their stakeholders taking joint responsibility. So the first thing with quality engineering, it is about collaboration. And of course it says team members and their stakeholders. Today, generative AI can be one of your team members. And so take responsibility together. One important tip already, don't delegate your responsibility to GenAI, but collaborate with GenAI. It's working together. And then why do you work together? Well, to continuously deliver IT systems with the right quality at the right moment to business people and their customers. Now, you may have seen definitions that say highest quality. In many situations, you don't want highest quality because it costs too much and it takes too long. So you better look at what is the right quality at the right moment, because it's better to have a good enough system today than a perfect system the next year. So think about what is good enough quality for your situation. And then quality engineering is a principle of software engineering concerned with applying quality measures to assure the quality of IT systems. Now, most of you are not native speakers, so the word quality measure may be quite difficult. And the trouble is, in English, measure can mean different things. To measure is to see how low or how heavy something is, but a measure is a group of activities. And what I mean here with quality measures is things you do to get the right quality at the right moment. And to make you remember what is meant with the word quality measure, I came up with the following sentence. If you understand that, and remember that you will never be confused anymore. So, testing is an example of a quality measure that measures the quality. Well, that should help. And there's 3 groups of quality measures. So there are quality measures like testing that give you information about quality level. And that's what we often think about. But at least as important, probably far more important, are quality measures to build in the right level of quality. So to start building the quality from the beginning. And one of the examples of that is pair programming. So two people spend time programming some software together, because then they'll have better ideas together, they will see each other's mistakes and fix it right away. So that's a way to build in quality, especially when you have big value or high risks. So that's quality engineering. And I don't know if he's actually going to use the word quality engineering, but Richie Zaino is going to talk about the quality wizard. I'm very curious to that, so see that this afternoon. Back in our book, we introduced the voice model, because remember my file at the start, where do you focus your efforts? Well, that is where the business wins big. So where is the business value? So when we wrote our book, we made this so-called voice model. And the voice model, it starts, it begins with the notion of business delivery. So it is all about what your business wants to deliver. And that may be financial systems or like a web shop, but it may also be you're in a government and your business and your value is supporting citizens. So it doesn't necessarily have to be monetary value. It can be all sorts of value. So the first thing is you define the value that you want to have, and then you come in the scope of IT delivery, and that first thing you need to do is think about the objectives. What are the things you need to achieve with IT to be able to deliver the business value? But then also you want to know if you're getting there. Are you getting business value? Are you achieving your objectives? And that's why you need indicators. So you want to measure indicators, and measuring indicators basically is testing. So try it and see if it works. And with that testing, you get information, and the information goes to your stakeholders, for example, a product owner. And that is so that they can get confidence that they will get the business value they're looking for. And when they have enough confidence, that they decide to go live, and then the users will experience the real value. And once users experience the real value, something interesting happens. They have new ideas about more value, so you have this value improvement loop, and they have another idea about business value. And if you do DevOps in a Kanban style, you can have multiple of these value improvement loops per day. Because somebody might say, I want an extra button, or can you change this? You can do it both times per day. When you work agile, it daily sprints of 2 weeks, so then the loop is every 2 weeks. And even for traditional IT, this voice model works. And by the way, I guess you already figured out why we call it the voice model. Simply, value, objectives, indicators, confidence, experience spells the left voice. It was a coincidence, but it sounds nice. So this is the background of why we do IT and what we focus on. Because knowing the business value helps you to focus on the things that are most important.
And remember, we were talking about testing smarter, not harder. Well, one of the first things to test smarter is to know actually what you're aiming for. So what's your end goal, the business value? Clara is going to talk about integrated change management for QA teams. And I don't know exactly what your presentation is all about, but I guess it also refers to the end goal that we want to achieve. Now, to do quality engineering and testing, you need to do many, many different things. When we were writing the books, we thought, let's make a list of all the things you need to do. And so we started writing, and before we knew it, we had a list of more than 50 activities. And then we thought, oh, this is never going to work. So we started grouping them, and then we came up with these 20 topics. And I don't have time to go into depth in all of those topics. Yesterday in the workshop, We already referred to a couple of them, and also we use GenAI to support these topics, like doing test design, doing reporting and alerting, that sort of stuff. But also when we were creating these topics, we noticed that some of the topics are things you do within your team. So if you're an agile team, all those performing topics are things you do within the team. For example, reviewing or test design or test automation, test execution, that's basically done in your team. And there are things you do for all the teams together. If you're in a large organization with many teams, you need to organize. For example, make a quality and test policy. Because you don't want every team to have their own policy, that wouldn't work. So you make one policy. Now I know this division is not totally black and white, because here you see estimating and planning, and they are in the organizing group because you would like some similar way of estimating and planning across your teams so that you can compare the plans and align the plans, etc. On the other hand, the actual plan and the actual time schedule will be made within your team. So it's not totally black and white. But the main thing with these topics is all of them are important. You cannot skip any of them. On the other hand, some of them you work on every day, like test design and test execution, and others you maybe change only once a year, like your policy. You shouldn't change it all the time. Later in my presentation, I'll get back to these topics. Yeah, and then what is testing? Now, the first definition of testing that I know comes from the book The Art of Software Testing from Glenford Myers, and that book was published in 1979. Even I was not in IT back then. And in 1979, the definition of testing was run a program to find the errors. So the idea behind that was, if you find all the problems and you fix them, you will have perfect software. Well, a couple of years later, Jerry Weinberg wrote a book, Perfect Software, and Other Illusions About Testing, making us aware that you will never have perfect software. So it's always about finding information to have the right quality at the right moment. So that is what testing is all about today. The central thing of testing is getting information. Now, how do you get information? You take your test object, which may be a small piece of code, it may be an end-to-end business process, anything can be your test object, and then you do three things: verification, validation, and exploration. Now, you may have seen definitions of testing before that said verification and validation. Even there are companies where their department is called the V&V department, verification and validation. And basically, verification means testing if it does what was written down. But if there is something written down which is not correct, and does that happen? Who has ever seen specification documents with faults in it? Probably everybody did, eh? So verification, you check if they built what was written down. But luckily, we also do validation, and validation is to check if it's fit for purpose, if it really does what you need, and not just what was written down. So verification and validation really help each other. But then we added something extra, and that's exploration. And let's take an example of security. If you want to test security, then with verification, you probably test, do I need a user ID to get in? Do I need a password? If the password is wrong several times, will it block me from the system? That's the kind of thing you do with verification. Just check all these standard things. With validation, you look if it works in your business process. So for example, you have a normal employee and they can do several things, and you have a senior employee and they can authorize the things the normal employee did, so they have a higher security clearance. So that is the way you can do verification and validation. But then for security, you also have these so-called ethical hackers. And they do exploration. They try to get in the system without a login, or do other things that were not described. Because one of the things of specifications is often it does describe what you should do in the system, but it does not describe what shouldn't be done. So that's what you find with exploration. Well, all these things together will give you information about the quality and the risks. And basically, quality translates to the things you want to have, and risks are the things you don't want to have. So, by having information about quality and risks, your stakeholders, like your product owner, they can have confidence that they will get their business value. Because in the end, why do we need the information? We need the information to know whether we will get our business value. And business value may be all sorts of things. And now, the frustration of me, and probably also a lot of you, is, as a tester, you're very much aware of quality. And you like high quality. But some business people, they think high quality is too expensive. We have enough business value if we have a system that mostly works, and that's it. And then you have to accept that they think they get enough business value with bad quality. And okay, fine with me. But at least they can never complain about bad testing, because I hate that. Have you ever seen that? That you have tested very well and then it goes live and then one little thing goes wrong and they first blame the tester. Well, my first answer is, who built this stuff? That's the one who created the problem, and we didn't find it. But that's why I like to think about business value, because then they say, yeah, this goes wrong. I said, do you still get your business value? Yeah, well then don't complain. Or if they say we don't get the business value, well, maybe then you should have specified better. Because testing is not just about running the system, it's also about reviewing stuff, looking into documents, etc. And actually, when you want to test smarter and not harder, one of the simple good things is to start with good reviews of your requirements documents and of your specification documents. And in the previous talk, Patrick Wolf already referenced to the fact that you can use tools like GenAI to do reviews, because GenAI is very good at language, and then you can ask it what things can be wrong with this document, and it will come up with all sorts of good advice. So testing is both static and dynamic. And then please remember one thing. A lot of people, and I guess it's not the people in this room, but other people, they think testing is about looking for bugs. It's not. Bugs are just a side effect. Testing is finding information about quality and risks. And if the quality is bad, well, you will find a lot of bugs. But I am always disappointed if I find bugs, because I hope for good quality. That's what I'm here for. And testers that are happy to find bugs, well, in my opinion, are not the best testers. Because, well, it's not what you're looking for. Okay, so GenAI. And I have made quite a number of pictures here. And so the question I put is, please generate a picture in cartoon style of an intelligent machine in Turkey, because that's where we are now. I will need this picture in a presentation about the future of quality engineering and testing according to the TMAP body of knowledge. And I asked it to ChatGPT 4.0. And this is what I got. Well, it's cartoon style, definitely. Turkey, well, there's a Turkish flag, so no doubt about that. And he's also smiling quite nicely. Remember this nice smile. So, there are 3 ways of using GenAI. Actually, Patrick Wolf said 2 ways, but I see 3 ways. So, let's see. The first thing that everybody always thinks of is using prompts. So, you write a prompt, you put that in your large language model, like ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or Copilot or whatever there are. And if you want to know more about it, well, there are a lot of people who joined my workshop. Who are the people who were in the workshop yesterday? Okay, so the other people, look who raised their hand now. You can ask them how to do it. They now know. Or you can go to the Crafting AI Prompts Framework website. Anyway, this is the first and most known thing. But there are other ways. Another one is GenAI-based tools. And I think what Patrick Wolf showed just before is basically a GenAI-based tool. So you don't need to write the prompts yourself. There's a user interface and the prompts are hidden from you, so you don't need to bother. Because writing good prompts is quite a lot of work, and to have a good prompt, sometimes it's quite a lengthy prompt. So it's good if somebody makes it and then you just use a user interface. But today, let's say the hype in AI is GenAI agents. And agents are autonomously operating pieces of software that just do simple tasks, or well, sometimes also very complex tasks. And what I have noticed recently is that it's not just about individual agents, but also much more than that. But that's one of the next slides. This is the Crafting AI Prompts Framework. And if you like to know more, you can download the cheat sheet, which briefly explains it. And of course, there's more explanation on the website. The second one is we also have a sort of user interface in front of GenAI. We call it the GenAI amplifier, where you can do all the different tasks in the software delivery lifecycle. And I won't go in details here. Or you can build workflows of agents. And recently I started experimenting with N8N. So you see the name on the top of the screen. N8N is a tool to make your own agentic AI. And I must admit, it looks promising. Still, as you can see from my workflow, I'm still learning. But the most important thing I already learned is you don't use one agent, you use a group of different agents that together fulfill your whole task or your whole process flow. So in the future, I know that we will have organizations of agents. And then people will probably be overseeing all those agents. So that's where we are heading. And I saw that August will have a presentation about AI-powered testing processes. And I'm not sure if he is using the word agents, but we'll see that in the afternoon. Okay, so I asked ChatGPT to now generate a picture that shows quality problems with GenAI, with GenAI-based agents in the context of quality engineering and testing for our conference here. And then it generated this picture. Very sad robot here with a bug and some other problems. So let's look a little bit into problems with GenAI. And by the way, Racim and Merve, they will have a presentation about strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats of AI-supported software testing. I'm very curious about that. Who knows the word confabulation? Okay, yeah, you're from England, you know it. Yeah, all the other people don't know it. Well, I must admit, I also didn't know a little while ago. And in a few slides you will see another word that you probably do know, but I think is wrong. So let me first explain to you what is confabulation. And I'll do that using my mother. So here, this is my mother. She is 88 years old now. And unfortunately, she has some form of dementia. So her memory is not working very well anymore. Luckily, she still recognizes family members, so she knows who I am. But other things in her memory are a little less good. So suppose you, who don't know my mother, get to talk with her. And for example, you ask her about her grandchildren. And then chances are that she will tell you that she had a great wedding of her granddaughter, and it was last month, and we had a lot of nice things and a nice wedding cake, etc. So it was a big party, and she's still thrilled about it because it was only a month ago. And well, you listen to that and you hear the story, and then you ask another question, you say, oh, and where did you live in the past? And she said, oh, our house, it was great. We lived there for more than 25 years, and we had a kitchen right at the street, so we could overlook the street from the kitchen table. And after dinner, when we were ready, we went to the living room, and that was upstairs on the first floor. And then you wonder, okay, we know this lady, she has some memory problems, and now what is the most likely thing to be true? Having had this wedding last month, or having a house with a living room on the first floor? Well, this is their house. It has a kitchen here, and it has a living room on the first floor. So this part was correct, but the wedding was not last month. Actually, I already have 5 grandchildren, 3 of them of the daughter in the wedding dress, so that's 6 years ago. Now the trouble with this is, that is what we call confabulation. The bottom line of this story is, it's not always obvious what story is true and what story is not true. And to distinguish confabulation, because this is confabulation, and I'll give you a definition on the next slide, but to distinguish confabulation from reality, you need knowledge. Now I know my mother all my life, so I know when this wedding was, and I know their house. And actually, it was a house with quite a weird setting of the whole thing. Now, I don't say GenAI has dementia, but it does confabulate. And that is a problem. So you need to make sure when the answers of GenAI are trustworthy or not. So let's look into a definition. But first, hallucination. Who heard about hallucination? Probably most of you did. Now both confabulation and hallucination are terms from psychology. And I think confabulation is a better term than hallucination. And why? Well, because confabulation means fill in gaps in the memory. And that's what my mother does all the time, because she knows sort of that she doesn't remember all the details, so she makes up the most likely details. And she tells a complete story. And that's exactly what GenAI also does. Because GenAI also doesn't have all the knowledge, but it gives you very convincing answers. Whereas hallucination means making up things out of thin air. Often, by the way, because somebody took drugs. But, and this is not what GenAI does. It does not really hallucinate, it confabulates, because it already has a lot of knowledge, but it also lacks some knowledge. And then it doesn't tell you, I don't know this, it simply gives the most likely answer. And sometimes that's good, sometimes it's totally wrong. Okay, now I wanted to have a picture that shows the human touch is still needed with GenAI. And this is an important message, especially for people not in this room, the upper level managers. Well, are there high level managers in the room, by the way? Maybe a few. Then this is a message for you. Don't think you can replace all your people by GenAI. It sounds nice, to make it simple in your organization. Don't have all these difficult people anymore. You just have plain and simple GenAI. Did you hear what I say? Plain and simple GenAI? There is no plain and simple GenAI. The GenAI is actually quite complex and troublesome. Anyway, you need a human touch still. So there is a human that needs to keep the AI in check. And when I saw this picture, so I generated with this prompt, I also asked about the TMAP body of knowledge. And now we have a robot holding a tablet. It says TMAP, so that's nice, but why is a robot holding a tablet? What does it do with a tablet? The same is on another picture that I showed yesterday in the workshop. The robot is having a piece of paper and a pen. Now, what robot is going to write down his thoughts with a pen? Anyway, that's the nice thing of GenAI. Have you heard of the AI Act, the new legislation in Europe? Well, or at least in the European Union. there's a lot of things you can do, things you cannot do. There are some things for which you are not allowed to use AI in the European Union, like social credit scoring. So using AI to see who is a good citizen, well, it's not allowed, and I'm very happy for that. But also an important thing is there, and that is human oversight. So don't let the AI be fully autonomous, but still have a human in the loop. And we'll get to that in the next slide. And also, if you like to work with quality characteristics, which I think is very important, they even mention a few quality characteristics here. But that's something for another talk. The AI Act has 6 principles, and the first principle is also the most important: human agency and oversight. So there must be people in the loop, and also humans should be able to override the decisions of the AIs. Well, and this is easy to write down in a law, but I guess the more we use GenAI, the more we have situations where it's difficult to override what the GenAI does or what it wants to do. So I have a few more slides about that. I won't go in detail of all of those, but you can look it up if you want. Another important one is transparency. Make sure that you always know that GenAI is involved. And that's something that, for example, organizations that use chatbots should be very clear about. And in the past couple of years, companies used to give their chatbots names like humans. For example, Alexa and Siri. Today, they don't do that anymore. For example, ChatGPT has a very technical name, so we know it's a GenAI, and that's good. That's about transparency, that you know it's not a person you're talking to. Because the answers it gives are so convincing that it easily passes the so-called Turing test, which was a test made more than half a century ago to distinguish or AI from people. Well, today, AI is so convincing that most of the time, if you get a choice, you think the AI is a person and the person is AI, because the persons give worse answers than AI does. And then Ethem will talk about test automation, but also the critical role of the human in the loop. And I think that's an important thing to look for. Now, recently, a new IEEE standard was published, the standard for transparent human and machine agency identification. And the idea of this standard is basically that you show a logo or an icon with any process. So if there's this logo, it means there's a human being that is talking with you. If it's this one, it's artificial intelligence, for example, ChatGPT. Now it becomes interesting. This is artificial intelligence, but with human oversight. So a human watches what the AI is doing. And then we have it sort of the other way around. The AI is telling the human what to do. I think it's kind of scary that we even think we will have that, but at least it's good that it notices. And of course, this is for totally synthetic media. Have you already seen these twinkles in all kind of logos? Since I saw this standard, I noticed that these twinkles are actually used many times already. So I trust that in the next couple of years, you will be seeing those logos and even probably be using those logos to make people aware what kind of system you are supporting. Now, keeping the human touch in decision making is important, and one of the important things is critical thinking. We humans, we have a way of thinking and discussing that is very useful to keep the GenAI in check. And never assume that GenAI is right. It can be very convincing, but it can also very convincingly tell stuff that is not true. So always check. And don't use GenAI if you're not able to check the result. And I have another slide about that later. Now, the problem is, how will this work? And I call this the airline pilot problem. Now, as you probably know, modern aircraft, they can fly itself. It's easier to make a self-flying aircraft than to make a self-driving car, because everything is controlled. So basically, you have two pilots in the airplane that are doing nothing for most of the time. They're just watching if everything is okay. And we all accept that. And with our tickets, we pay for these pilots, and we do that happily because we want to know that if something goes wrong, there's someone who can do something about it. But now I have this question for you. In IT, will we be willing to have highly skilled and highly educated people permanently witnessing the GenAI and decide whether it's good enough, and if not, fix it? Because if the GenAI is correct 98% of the time, and I don't know, I didn't study it, but I guess it will be, so it's correct almost all the time, will the IT people and the business people be willing to pay for expensive experts like us to sit and oversee the GenAI? I fear they won't. So I fear we will see a lot of IT disasters in the next couple of years. And then people will learn that you really need human oversight, and then they will ask us to come back. That's also what I see in some DevOps organizations. Some manager hears on a DevOps conference, with DevOps, you don't need business analysts, you don't need testers, because the developers can do anything. Well, I recently was in an organization where they called me in and they said, yeah, we have fired all the business analysts, we have fired all the testers, but it appears that the developers are not very good at testing. Can you teach them testing? And by the way, do that in 2 days, please. Okay, nice job. The basic thing I did is try to teach them that testing can be fun. Because if something is fun, they're more likely to do it. Who knows about vibe coding? Yeah, that's only a few people. Well, I cannot blame you, because vibe coding was only, oh, where is it? Hey, one animation doesn't work. Well, then I'll just explain you. 3.5 months ago, on the 2nd of February this year, Andrej Karpathy, and that's one of the OpenAI people, he posted on Twitter, and that was supposed to be here now, about vibe coding. And then, what does he mean with vibe coding? He means there are people that have no clue about writing software, and they just ask ChatGPT or Copilot or any other tool to write code. And it does. And then they ask it to deploy it, and they do. And then it runs, and you have working software. So without knowing anything about coding, you can do coding. And well, he called it vibe coding. Now the downside of that is, do they think about performance? Do they think about security? Do they think about usability? Well, probably not. So there's many, many risks there. So vibe coding is a relatively new term, but already in development conferences, there's a lot of talk about it, about the possibilities, but also the risks. Now, then people are saying, should we then also have vibe testing? So we have people that don't know anything about testing. They ask ChatGPT, oh, I have this new application, probably vibe coded, and now please test it for me. And then, well, without any further instruction, ChatGPT generates some tests, it runs the test, and it says, yeah, all the tests pass. Do you now feel confident? And do you think you will get your business value? I don't. So don't do vibe testing. But then what do you do? What I say is do AMP testing. And AMP testing is short for amplified testing. You collaborate with a GenAI, you know what you're doing, but you amplify your work because you want to test smarter, not harder, and you want to test faster. And using GenAI can really help you speed up. For example, yesterday in the workshop we saw that if you need test data, with GenAI you can generate test data in an instant. It takes very little time, whereas if you have to do it yourself, it takes much more time. Or just before, Patrick Wolf also demonstrated how you can select your test data from a database using GenAI. So, and that is what we call AMP testing. So amplify your testing using GenAI, but still know what you're doing using the proper theoretical background. So luckily, testers are still needed. Any managers in the room, remember this. Michael will talk about critical thinking rules in the AI-enhanced software testing. So that's also something I'm looking forward to. Another little tile. GenAI, some people say, is just a tool. Now, as you probably know, a fool with a tool is still a fool. But GenAI is not just a tool, it's a very powerful tool. And a fool with a powerful tool is a dangerous fool. So be aware of what people are using and what they are doing when applying this. So let's have a look. Oh, and by the way, Murat is, and this was interesting about using tools. At 11 o'clock we have 2 presentations, both about test automation. So that's going to be the moment that you have a very hard choice. But, well, let's just split in half, and half goes to one and the other half goes to the other, and then afterwards we will tell each other the learnings of the other story. Now there's one other problem with GenAI, and that's what I call the senior problem. Currently we have a lot of senior people in testing and quality engineering, etc. And normally you become a senior by starting as a junior, then you do all the junior tasks and you learn the craft, and after some time you become a senior. But now the GenAI is there to do all the junior tasks because it can do all the simple tasks. So we don't need juniors anymore. And then in a while you won't have seniors anymore, because the seniors will, well, eventually retire, I hope. Although I also fear retirement. I'm quite an old man, but still not retired and not looking forward to it. But so this may be a problem. Your juniors won't be educated anymore because it's the AI doing all the simple stuff. So what we need to think about, oh, and by the way, Hilal talks about new skills and opportunities for QA engineers, and that's typically what you need. You need to think about other skills. Because when I started as a COBOL programmer in 1980, I needed to learn hexadecimal calculations. Who still knows what it is? I think probably only Istvan. Yeah, he's even longer in IT than I am. But nowadays you don't need to know that anymore. Why not? Because we automated all that stuff. And that's the same with GenAI. Juniors need to learn other skills because GenAI can do the simple stuff. So what the humans really need is a vision and a goal. Because making a vision is not something you can delegate to GenAI. You can't say to GenAI, imagine what our company should do. What's the goal of our company? Yeah, no, that's the human vision. So humans make the vision and the goal, and then GenAI can support you in achieving that. So you need to translate so that the GenAI knows what to do. And that's how we came up with a very nice new function title, Problem Solution Imagineer. I'm not sure if this term is really going to fly, but it sounds nice, doesn't it? Now I showed you the 20 TMAP topics, and all of them are important, but now you wonder, can we use GenAI for some of them? Well, yesterday we already worked on test design, test data management, test automation, reporting and alerting. These are things that you quickly think of in using GenAI to support quality engineering and testing. But with my colleague Timothy and some other people, we thought about all of those. And actually, for each of those topics, you can think of a use case where GenAI will support you in doing your work. So basically, GenAI can help you in any task. For some tasks, it's very obvious. For other tasks, you need to think a little harder, but basically, it can help you in any task. So, do use GenAI to support you. Collaborate with it. I am very happy that Microsoft called their GenAI tool Copilot. They did not call it Autopilot, because you don't delegate the work and don't think about it. No, you work together. You collaborate. So that's why Copilot is a very good term. Now, the next slide may be the most important slide of this whole presentation. And that is when you use GenAI and when you do not use GenAI. And it boils down to 3 simple questions. And the first simple question is, does it matter if the output is correct? So when I generate a picture to show in this presentation, it doesn't really matter too much. Remember, the quality engineer in the hard hat using the measurement instrument wrongly. Who cares? Actually, we had a bit of fun. So in that situation, go ahead, use GenAI, no problem there. But generally, in your business context, you do want the output to be correct. So if it's important that the output is correct, there's another question. Do you have the expertise and the process and also the knowledge and skills to verify if the output is correct? So are you able to see if it's okay? If not, don't use GenAI. And too often I already see people that actually don't know what's happening and then just use GenAI and they get an answer and they think it's okay. Well, if it's for your own use, it's only you who has a problem. But if it's in a company, you may have a serious problem for the company. So if you don't have that knowledge, don't use it. If you do, then you have another question. Are you willing and able to take full responsibility for the consequences if it still is not correct? So you think it's okay, but you never know for sure. So if you are not willing and able to take that responsibility, don't use it. And if you are willing and able to take the responsibility, use it with caution. Be very careful. And this is basically where we are using GenAI in organizations. Now, interestingly enough, a lot of organizations now do not allow their employees to use GenAI because they think, yeah, it's risky and you never know what's happened, don't use it. There's one little problem with that the developments in GenAI go so quickly, it amazes me. I've been in IT for more than 4 decades now, and I've never seen a change going so fast. Yesterday in the workshop, I asked people, how long do you think we have ChatGPT? And then people think it's about 4 or 5 years. No, it's only 2.5 years. We are talking about something that didn't exist 2.5 years ago. So on the one hand, I can understand that organizations say, oh, it's scary, let's not use it. On the other hand, if your employees don't get experience using GenAI, your company may be out of business in 1 or 2 or 3 years because everybody's going to use it. But be very careful and make sure you have processes to see if it goes well. And Masoud will look more into leveraging machine learning for continuous performance testing, and that I thought is also related to when do you use it and when don't you. Now the question is, should you worry? Will a bot steal your place in testing? Will you be out of a job? Well, I have good news for you. AI will not replace you, but somebody using AI might. Now you are doing a good thing because you're all here. Today we're talking all about risks and possibilities of GenAI, so you learn about what GenAI can do. So you may be one of those people who can use GenAI, and then you might probably replace other people that said, oh, this is just a hype, it will go by. No, it won't. It will dramatically change our lives. Also, it changes our relationships. So, at the end of today, Mike is going to talk about stakeholder management, and I think GenAI is one of those stakeholders. And you need to be very careful about that. And then a little advice about sustainability. Yeah? People, they worry about all the energy use. Basically, I always say, if you use GenAI for a good purpose, well, that's probably a good reason. But still, you can be careful in using electricity with GenAI. So, one of my tips is, do not be nice to your chatbot. Now you may wonder, what do you mean, do not be nice to your chatbot? Well, don't say thank you. So the chatbot does something for you, and then you say thank you, but if you thank a person, they will nod or they will acknowledge, and they're happy to do so. But for the GenAI tool, it is a new prompt, and it starts processing the whole new prompt as if it was just a general prompt. And it starts thinking, oh, thank you, what does it mean? And how do I now need to respond? Oh, I need to say, you're welcome, and can I do anything else for you? And that costs a lot of energy, and of course, if you're the only one thanking it, it doesn't matter. But if millions of people say thank you, so don't say thank you. On the other hand, in 10 or 20 years or so, we might have artificial superintelligence. They are smarter than any of us. Do you want to be the one who is remembered for never thanking them? So what I started doing is I started typing thank you in advance in my prompt. So it doesn't need to worry about a new prompt, but it still knows. And actually, it appears that ChatGPT simply ignores it. So, and that's what most people also do, by the way. Anyway, I still have a little bit of time for questions. And the people who were there yesterday know how much time it took to give out some books. Today I thought, I'll give a book for every good question. So don't ask me about the weather, that's not a relevant question, but who has a good question? And then I hope there's someone with a microphone. Please ask a question, otherwise I have very heavy luggage going home again. Do you have a question? Christina has a question.
It's a question. So, because you also said that people who use AI will replace basically the people who don't use AI, what kind of tools, or like, what specific AI tools are you using right now, I would like to know.
What tools am I using?
Yes.
I mainly use ChatGPT. I also use Copilot, well, because in our company we're only allowed to use Copilot, so I use ChatGPT on my own machine. And I look into other tools. For example, I showed N8N that I'm now, well, studying and seeing what it can do. I use some tools to generate pictures. Oh, and I have another slide after this that also gives you a little use. Well, anyway, it's yours. Any other questions? You are.
At yesterday, I asked you a question about make graphs at ChatGPT.
Yeah.
There was an error. I cannot see the graphs. For seeing the graphs, crafting the graphs, do you have any advice about what I should use any other GenAI tools, such as Copilot, for example?
Yeah, well, one general advice is, if something doesn't work in one GenAI tool, try another. You have Copilot, you have Gemini, you have Claude, and all the others. And the same prompt in another tool can give totally different results. Also be aware of what you exactly want, and be aware of the difficulties of the English language. Because I started off asking for graphs, and then apparently a graph is some kind of picture. Whereas if you ask for a chart, it gives you something, for example, a pie chart. So a chart and a graph are different things. So that's something you need to know. Well, thank you. I have one book left. So, one question over there. Oh, sorry for you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I would like to ask the definition of quality assurance job that we are doing at the moment is really close to what we are doing with DevOps teams, and we are closer to them. Is GenAI is going to make us more close to them, and just definition of ours is going to be replaced with anything else?
So, if I understand your question correctly, is GenAI changing how we do quality assurance in DevOps teams? Well, the basic thing in DevOps teams is you like to automate stuff in DevOps. And GenAI is basically an automation tool. The only thing is it doesn't simply automate test execution, but it can automate all sorts of testing and quality assurance tasks. So it will change your life, and actually with quite a lot of impact.
Thank you very much.
Well, that brings me to the end. Thank you. Now, these were the winners of a book, but I have good news for all the others, because since we are celebrating 30 years of TMAP, what we did is we generated an audio book. And Christina asked, what do I do with GenAI? Well, I used 11labs.io to generate an audio book which contains a summary of our book. And you can freely download it. By the way, on the picture you see two of the authors, but we didn't record the audiobook ourselves. We generated it with GenAI. So you can find it on podcast apps with the Technology Leads channel, or go to Sogeti Labs, where I made a blog, or just go to the book page on the TMAP website and enjoy the TMAP book. So, well, I don't have time for all this. This is all history and training courses you can do with ISQI certification. And that is the end of my story. I wish you a very nice day on the conference. I referred you to all the talks. I hope you make a good selection and get a lot of knowledge today. And then good luck using GenAI for quality engineering and testing. Thank you.